Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Lenny Robbie YouTube channel. Let's come together. New Year politics. Let's come together to create a better understanding for each other by watching and listening to what our politicians do so that we can better be able to watch what they really do. I want to use this opportunity to dive into something here that has been of great concern to me because we are in an election here. And both political parties, as I said before, and we all know this, are in election mode. They are ready and they're willing to either retain power or get into power. Now, what surprises me most of all, or should I say concerns me most of all, is just the way they debate each other, the way they speak of each other, the way they address each other. I listened to a gentleman from out in Canada, Wayne Ugly Lonesome. I don't know why they call you ugly. I don't think it's because it looks, but I think maybe your attitude and your composure has more to do with ugly than your looks. Because I don't think any man was born ugly. Because God made us all in his own likeness and image. So I don't call people ugly. You understand, sir? And the thing that I hear you say about the Jamaica Labour Party and its leaders and all of these things, they are human beings just like the PNP. And I'm calling you out, and I'm calling out also some JMP bloggers who have said the same thing about Margolin. You understand? And we need to understand that they're all human beings. And we are dependent on them to govern the country. And we are not dependent on them to govern the country for labor right or just for PNP. We are dependent on them to govern the country in a way so that everyone is benefiting. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, it leads me to begin to think, not to begin, to think. How did we get here? The nastiness that is spewed on YouTube and live broadcast and campaign trail leaves me pondering the question, how did we get here? For me to really understand that and to get a clear understanding of how we get here, I decided to take a look and go back historically at where it all started, where the politics all started, where it's coming from, and why has it evolved to where it is today? Why has it evolved to where it is today? And how long can we continue on the path it is? Because the politics nowadays is in the gutter. And we got to really stop and start to think clearly where we are going with this. So I want to use this opportunity to shed a little light on the pre-independence and post-independence politics. Now, I'd like to start at a point because there were political parties in place before the PNP came into power. But of the two household name parties now in Jamaica, PNP was created 5 years before the JLP. Hear this. Historically, Norman Manley, we know he's a graduate of Oxford University, a law scholar. Bustamante was just a person a labor rights leader. He was a labor rights leader. He was the man who was on the ground championing the cause of workers' rights in that regards. I remember during the 30s, this started back in the 30s, even before, but in the 30s when it became prominent, we were under the British rule. We were under British rule. And they wouldn't admit Buster couldn't contest the election to enter into British Parliament. Norman Manley graduated from Oxford, as I said, and he came and joined his cousin. And they together, listen to this, they together began to champion the cause of workers' rights. They work separately, but when necessary, they work together. Remember, they worked together so much to the point that when Bustamante even asked to face the court for anything, his lawyer was Norman Manley. His lawyer was Norman Manley. So these good guys in the 30s continue their struggle, continue to fight for workers' rights. People work on the dark banana plantation, sugar plantation. Wherever you are was working as a black man. They're championing a cause for better wages, safer work environment, you understand, shorter work hours and all of these things. Bustamante himself was sent to prison, sentenced by the British government to a year and a half in prison. He was found guilty of some subversive action with the BITU. His defender was Norman Manley. Do you know all of that? But during his tenure, Manley now realized, and not just Manley, but this push started even with Marcus Garvey, before Manley came to the fore. Because Garvey was also advocating for self-governance, meaning independence, our own independence, our own government. Other prominent thinking leaders of the country at the time also joined, chorused in with Garvey. So Manley himself, now with a scholarly mind, now sees the opportunity and recognize also, we really need this thing. We really need self-governance. And the best way to do it is that for me to participate and continue to represent workers, not only should I only be seen as a labor leader, but I must be recognized as a political leader. Because as a political leader, you have more autonomy, more rights, and more leg to stand on. Cutting a long story short, Buster came back out of prison. As a matter of fact, while Buster was in prison, there were two trade unions existing, the TAUC, which was the TUAC, Trade Union Advisory Council, and the BITU. Now, while Buster was in prison, members of the Manley entourage organization involved themselves in the BITU. Meanwhile, Buster was in prison and some of his other people on the ground. But after Buster got back out, they later returned to the TUAC, which is today the NWU. But because of the growing need for self-independence and the growth of the labor movements in Jamaica, both leaders now determined, arrive at a decision that, and coupled with public sentiments, it is now time for us to start to seek political position, become political leaders. In 1938, at the 18th of September, 1938, 18th of September, at the War Theatre, Norman Manley launched the formation of the party. Well, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. The original name of the party then was the Jamaica Labour Party, not the People's National Party. The original name was the Jamaica Labour Party. What happened thereafter, 1938, at the same evening, a couple of weeks after, or whatever, but sometime after, senior members of the party began to wrestle with the name Jamaica Labour, concluding that if we use the term Jamaica Labour, it may send the wrong signal, wrong message to people out there that the party is only open to laborers. Thus the name changed from Jamaica Labour Party. So the Jamaica Labour was dropped. Now they could name it Jamaica Democratic Party because there was a third party in existence at the same time, the Jamaica Democratic Party. So what they did, People's National Party, the birth of the PNP. September 18th, 1938. Now on July 8th, on the 8th of July, 1943, the very name that the PNP dropped at the same place in Ward Theatre in downtown Kingston was picked up by Bustamante and his entourage. And there they gave birth to the Jamaica Labour Party, the very name the PNP put down. So for all who didn't know this, and you're out there cursing out the JLP, remember, that's the first name the PNP used. And the name was only changed not because of what you're thinking, but only because they didn't want to give the impression that parties are only open to laborers. Because at the time, in the 30s, we weren't workers, buddy. We were laborers. Your great-great-grandfather was a laborer, wasn't a worker. So for pre-independence, these two gentlemen worked very well. They worked very well. They were working together. Right? They were working together. Now, here's some more interesting facts. Now, coming out of a 1943 dialogue about the new constitution they were talking about, this is when Bustamante realized that, boy, listen, for me to really represent and participate in this movement at the highest level, I have also to be recognized as a political leader, not just as a labor leader. You understand? And thus, on July 8, 1943, as I said before, the JLP was created. The JLP name came back to life at the very same place that gave birth to the PNP, the Ward Theatre downtown Kingston. Now at the time when the JLP came about, people like Hugh Shearer and them man, the St. Clair, Shirley, Lyndon Newland, Isaac Barrett, L.W. Rose, Leopold Lynch, Frank Pixley, and a lot more other members, and a lot more other people who became, they were all youth trade unionists. Because at the time, they were only trade unionists, labor leaders, workers fighting for workers' rights. So they became members of the JLP. Now, after they declared the new constitution, within 18 months after that declaration, now we are in November 1944. Because that new declaration, remember, dialogue took place in 1943. So in November 1944, which is about 18 months later, after the declaration of the new constitution, a call was made for a two-tiered council, House of Assembly, a two-tiered House of Assembly and an executive council, by which time a general election was called and held on December 14, 1944. Now, the JLP won that election with a 41% margin of the vote. The PNP won 23%. And the Jamaica Democratic Party won 24%. Won 4% of that one. Now, in a public speech prior to this election, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is what Bustamante said. This goes to show the unity of the party. Even though different in ideology, look at how these two gentlemen were working the party. Prior to this election, in a public meeting, Bustamante said the following, and I quote, "If Mr. Manley cooperate with me as well as I with him, that we will do something for this country. I will say without boast that there is no greater power in this country than the combination of Manley and Bustamante." Let me reword that last part of it. I will say without boast that there is no greater power in this country than the combination of PMP and JLP coalition. A togetherness, no power. And if there's any man out there who can challenge this and tell me which power could be greater than the combination of the PMP and JLP in Jamaica politically, drop it in the column. Let us talk about it. Let us talk about it. Now, how did we get here? How did we get here? From the days of our colonial past to our present day political struggles, Jamaica has faced complex challenges that help to shape and determine where we are today. Our socio-economic political structure, evidently to this day, still reflects multi-layered issues of power dynamics and cultural influences that remind us of the legacy of our colonial past. Remember this. Up to this day, we still faces multi-layered issues of power dynamics and cultural influences that keep reminding us of our colonial past, of the legacy of our colonial past, or whatever you want to think about it. Now, the 20th century saw some of Jamaica's early emerging leaders, such as, like I said, Marcus Garvey, Norman Manley, and Bustamante, and other, coupled with public sentiments that I mentioned earlier, that began to push for self-governance, meaning pushing for independence. How can we get there? So this push led to Jamaica becoming a so-called independent nation in 1962, because really and truly we were not fully independent. Let us get that out there. At this point in time, our democracy began. No, carefully listen this. At this point in time, after we get our independence, our democracy began to face increased issues of economic inequalities, social unrest, and political polarization. Where did this come from? When the question was asked, who should we hand the power to when Jamaica was granting independence? What did David Court said? What was his answer? Give it to us. Give it to us. Put it in our hands. 1962. And it was at this point that our democracy began to face increased issues of economic instability, social unrest, and political polarization, because once politicians get the power, then PMP went that way, JLP went that way. The first election after 1962 was won by the JLP. Bustamante was the prime minister. But if we went back to 1962 and look at that performance, we realize that Buster was sitting there like a figurehead prime minister, because now both parties have a greater autonomy, greater power to wield, and the politics was going in a different direction. The politics itself was moving in a direction. This has nothing now to do with the collaborative effort at Norman Manley and Bustamante. Nothing like that. It is now moving in the PMP's direction and moving in the JLP direction. Buster made it clear earlier, posted pre-independence, that the only difference he had with Norman Manley was that the PMP was of social democratic tendency and he was more on the conservative side, conservatism side. He made it clear. He made that clear. That was the only difference. But they work together for the benefit of human, of workers' rights. And with these two parties, pre-independence, post-independence, though different in ideologies, there was a common goal between them. There was a common goal. A goal of socio-economic growth and prosperity for the nation. Out of these ideological differences comes an elaborate range of issues such as corruption, crime, and socio-economic disparities. Now listen to this. Ideological differences. Buster addresses that. As I said, one was social democratic philosophy, ideology, and they were conservative, on the conservative side. Right? But with the new power given to these people, with the new power, the ideological differences comes out of the ideological differences comes an elaborate range of issues such as corruption, crimes, socio-economic disparity. Over time, this also helps to lay the foundation for the fomentation of political gang warfare, which poses a serious threat to public safety then and economic investment. Added to all this is the endemic corruption that found itself rooted in our political system, serving as one of Jamaica's biggest political problems and eroding public trust, and as a roadblock to any meaningful socio-economic reform that could or should facilitate any plans for growth and stability in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we get to where we are. Right from the day of independence, the old dynamics of the politics changed. Power shifted. Focus shifted. The polarization was now planted. PNP on this side, JLP on that side. So Jamaica is in two parts, politically. But I still remain and maintain that without the collaborative effort and involvement of our political leaders, not political leader, our political leaders, civil society and citizens, we will never reap the benefits of politics as I describe it, which is the equitable distribution of opportunity, wealth, and justice. The opportunity, equal opportunity of wealth, opportunity, and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind us all and remind you all that our society is a cultural melting pot. Jamaica is a society of a cultural melting pot. Therefore, each and every one of us must be given an opportunity or equal opportunity, as we're all deserving of the opportunity to achieve a reasonable, good standard of life, quality of life. We all deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use this opportunity to say to you once again, Lenny Robbins YouTube welcomes you to the channel. Watch what they do. Let's come together. Let us come together to create a better understanding for each other. Because we must watch what our politicians do. We must listen to them. Because that way it is very important for us to be in a position to watch what they do, so we can analyze clearly what they don't do. Because sometimes when you watch what they do, it tells you clearly what they won't do. You understand? And our politics as it is in the gutter. It is in the gutter. And if we continue like this, where it's gonna go? How further can it take us? How more corrupt can it be? How much more polarized can we be? Are you a gentleman from out in Canada ugly lonesome? I don't call you ugly so by face. I think it's your attitude why you're ugly. Because God makes every man in his own likeness and image. So I don't see anyone as ugly. But your attitude can be ugly. The way you see things and talk about things can be ugly. And I must say this, sir, that please, tone down, man. The world is unfolding as it should. Tone down. If we're going to survive this world, we're all going to survive it together, and none of us will be here to enjoy this world. None of us. Because you alone can create a sustainable path for humanity. Neither can the PNP alone create a sustainable path for Jamaica. And the JLP cannot do it either. We all have to put our hands together. Our political leaders, civil society, citizens, we all have to come together to create a sustainable path and a better life, quality of life for all Jamaicans. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for the Lenny Robbins YouTube channel. Welcome to Jamaicans all over. Be blessed. And today is Monday. I hope this finds you all in a good spirit. For those who are sick, we're not afraid to say get well soon. Lift up prayers for you guys because it's important. We'd like to know that all Jamaicans, we can enjoy a good quality of life as we go along and as a result of politics. And don't be afraid with the voice. Bustamante said, if only Mr. Manley would cooperate with me as I with him, we shall do something for this country. And that there could be no power greater than, we can do something for this country so great, because there's no power greater than the combination of both Manley and Buster. So if we look at it in a real way, what the man is saying to us is that there would be no greater power than the combination of PNP and JLP. They come together to do something for this country. So let us raise our voice and speak to these politicians. Election is coming up and everybody is promised to downtown and this, but the world economy is shifting and moving all over the place. None of us can predict exactly what's going to happen. So ladies and gentlemen, just want to use this opportunity to say to all Jamaicans, wherever you are in life, have a blessed Monday, rest of the day, and the rest of the week. But don't be afraid to speak out. Let them call you fools, let them call you idiot. The only true yardstick by which you can judge a person is time. A man can say anything he want to say about you today. Let him say it. Let him speak his mind. And don't be afraid of criticism. That time is the only yardstick by which we judge people. Lenny Robbins YouTube channel, over and out. Thank you very much.